guys, you're the worst. I show up 5 minutes late and you're like, Steve must be pooping. I wasn't pooping. You idiots. You're so funny. I love you. No, I just timed my morning wrong. That's all it is. I'm like, all right, instead of at 11 a.m., if I give myself an extra 15 minutes, I'm going to be on time this time. It never happens, does it? I'm always late. What is it? What does Gandalf say? A wizard is never late. He comes at precisely the right time. Come on in, gang. Great to see you all. We are live. Great to have every one of you here. You are awesome. Good to see you all. It's so cool. You guys are the best. Doug for Gov. I see it. That's right. Equinox Black. Excellent. Good to see you guys. I'm Dr. Steve. It is Live Stream Friday. Your Patriot Professor here to help you think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button if you haven't already done so. And boy, are you going to feel better after this live stream. This is going to be awesome. I am here to answer your questions. So the super chats are up. Send me your questions. I'll answer them at the end. We've got so much to talk about. We have at least one news outlet calling a very real October surprise bomb that just hit the Democrats. And the Democrats know it, and they're panicking. They're freaking out, and you can tell by how they've shifted their messaging of late, and you're seeing it all across the board. Their messaging has shifted radically in the last few weeks because they're reading the writing on the wall. Let's just dive right into it because you guys are going to get so excited with this stuff. The New York Times Siena College poll has just come out, okay? And they're showing what is nothing less than, how do I put it? Drum roll, drum roll. They are showing an October surprise. But this is a unique October surprise in that it's a, you know what an October surprise is, right? It's a sudden, unexpected political event orchestrated a month or so before an election in the hopes of affecting the outcome, right? And according to the Republic Brief, the Democrats just got slammed with perhaps the most brutal October surprise imaginable. But ironically, as I'm going to show you in this live stream, it's one of their own making. It's something that backfired on them. It's a shocking political event that was indeed orchestrated, but not the way the Democrats hoped. And I have to say it is shocking. It's as shocking as it is validating because all we hear from the mainstream media is how the Democrats are surging, right? Think about it. The drive-bys in the media have been out there since early August, gleefully reporting, we're seeing a blue wave, we're seeing a blue wave rising. Joe Biden is more popular than ever. Look at all these legislative victories. Even Joe Manchin is behind his man, Joe Biden. Build Back Better is better than ever. The Republican Party is falling apart. Women across the nation are rising up and pushing back against those ultra-Christian nationalist Republican Supreme Court justices. The American electorate is finally turning their backs on Trump and the insurrectionists who together pose the single greatest threat to our democracy since 9/11. That's not bad. I'm going to play that one back. That's all we've been hearing over the last few months. All these Republican candidates, in Arizona and Georgia and Pennsylvania, they're all election deniers, conspiracy theorists, QAnon quacks. No one takes them seriously. No way. No one's going to vote for them. They're down 90 points in the polls. But look at how amazing John Fetterman is. John Fetterman, right? Something out of a Hammer horror film, man. John Fetterman. These Democrats actually think John Fetterman is like the most amazing candidate. How dare you? How dare you suggest he's unfit for office because he can't talk? Because he can't form a coherent sentence. Don't you know who's our president? How dare you? So that's all we've been getting since the middle of the summer from the mainstream media. And then, all of a sudden, this bombshell. This bombshell hits. This is from the New York Times Siena College poll. It's just come out showing an astonishing, get this, 32-point shift among independent women's support from Democrats 2 Republicans in 1 month. The poll shows that 49% of likely voters said they plan to vote for the Republican to represent them in Congress on November 8th, compared with 45% who plan to vote for a Democrat. That's the so-called generic ballot. That's what we've been consistently seeing. Republicans are sitting in a 4-point lead. By the way, we have a brand new poll that just dropped today from Barris. That's going to blow your mind. The lead is even bigger than that. And by the way, that's huge given, when Republicans have a 4-point lead, you have to understand that's including oversampling of Democrats, all right? So you got to keep that in mind because cosmopolitan areas are easier to poll than rural areas, and cosmopolitan areas are overwhelming Democrat. The result of this 4-point lead the Republicans have represents an improvement for Republicans since September when Democrats held a 1-point lead. The biggest shift came from women who identified as independent voters. In September, so we're just talking a month ago, they favored the Democrats by 14 points. Now, independent women back Republicans by an astounding 18 points, representing an overall 32-point shift towards the Republicans. And again, to underscore, this is among independent women who up until now were solidly in the Democrat camp. So once again, we're seeing another Democrat constituency, women defecting in droves away from the Democrats to the Republicans, just like we've been seeing with white working class voters, Latino voters, and we're seeing increasingly now among black men. And of course, the question is why? The Democrats are desperately asking why. Why are women, the Dobbs voter, the Roe v. Wade voter, our number one constituency, why are they leaving us? And we have the answer. And the answer provides the key to how we know how these midterms are going to play out. The answer provides the key to knowing why these midterms are going to be an absolute blowout. We have an amazing study I'm going to read for you. I'm not going to read for you. I'll explain to you. You absolutely love it. But first, guys, of course, let's pay the bills here. Pay the electricity. Make sure to click on that link below. Show some love to the sponsor of this video. And that's our good friends over at the Ready Project Food Supply. So, gang, look, we do take care of each other here on this channel. And if you don't have a 4-week emergency food supply for your family, then today's the day. Just end that little, problem you have here. You know the old saying, screw it, just do it. Click on that link below because no one makes preparing for an emergency more ridiculously easy and affordable than our good friends over at the Ready Project Food Supply. They're amazing. Their food kits last up to 25 years in storage. They include breakfast, lunches, and dinners. Every meal's at least 2,000 calories. And if you click right now, you're going to get 25% off a full 4-week emergency food supply. So think about it. It's literally one and done. Get the 4-week supply, and you're good for the next 25 years. Talking about an amazing investment. So don't wait. They're patriots just like us. They love to serve you. Click on that link and start building your emergency food supply today. All right. So what's the answer here? Why are women abandoning the Democrats in droves? Well, at a surface level, in terms of this polling from the New York Times, keep in mind, at a surface level, and of course we always dive deeper because I'm your Patriot professor, but superficially, as every single poll out there shows, inflation and the economy are not just the top issue for voters, they are absolutely dominant in terms of the top issue. It's not even close. If you're taking like the top 10, right, or just whatever your percentage of it, these are occupying 80%. 8 out of 10 people consider inflation, recession, and the economy as their number one issue. Okay, so and then down below 20% are these rabid ideologues who think something else. So inflation, economy are their top issues. It's not J6. It's not saving our democracy, as Joy Behar will just keep blathering. It's not Dodd and abortion. It's not climate change. It's not anything that the mainstream media has been doing, everything they possibly can, desperately trying to distract voters with. It's not working. It's the economy, right? It's the economy, stupid. The economy. Remember James Carville during the Clinton campaign? The economy. It's the economy. What did Rush used to call James Carville? They call him snakehead or serpent head, something like that. Regardless, yes, it's the economy all over again. It's inflation, it's recession, it's stagflation, it's pain at the pump, it's rising energy bills, it's rising food costs, it's the continued baby formula shortage that still has not been fixed. It's more and more people having to choose between food and fuel. So surface level, it's the economy. But here's where things get good. Ready for this? If we dive deeper, we can see what's really driving voters away from the Democrats. We could find something that's ultimately determinative for how a midterm election plays out. Who do voters blame for this crashing economy? You know it. Put it in the chat. You know it. Who do voters blame ultimately for this crash? Do they blame the Republicans? Do they blame Trump? Do they blame the insurrectionists? Who do they blame for the crashing economy? Well, of course, it's none other than ice cream eating, hair sniffing, preposition slaughtering, bike riding Biden. And that's so key to understanding what's happening here in these midterms. In many respects, we could have written this script months ago. In a way, we kind of did here on this channel with the help of people like Rich Barris and Red Eagle Politics and a number of others. The reason why we're seeing the dam breaking here just a few weeks before, 2.5 weeks before the election with this, it's been this massive move towards the Republicans over the last couple of weeks. I mean, the dam is just broke. I'll show you all the polls here. The reason why we're seeing this is fundamentally because of bumbling Biden's pathetic approval ratings. Superficially, it's the economy. That's what's crashing his approval ratings, no question. But it's the approval ratings that we have to zero in on in order to determine, as best we can, in an educated projection, what kind of outcome these midterms are going to be. Now, if you're a regular to this channel, and if not, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We would love to have you as a regular part of our online community here, which is great. You got blame the Dems. Everyone's saying Biden and the Dems. It's a little more specific. It's not just Dems. Granted, it's Dems are taking the fall justifiably because of it, but it's actually more. It's centered on Biden, and here's why. If you're regular to this channel, you'll know that I constantly point to two major indicators that are decisive for the midterms. Who knows it? Two major indicators decisive for the midterms. Put it in the chat. We always talk about, if you want to know how a midterm is going to play it, don't look at the polls of the individual candidates. Stop doing that. Stop doing, because those could be all over the place. All right. Don't worry about that. There are two indicators, rolling indicators, that tell you historically how a midterm is going to play out. Who knows? You ready? Right track, wrong track polls. Right, is America on the right track or the wrong track? And presidential approval. That's it when all said and done. Some have some rely on a 4 to 5 indicator model. But when all is said and done, we could break it down to those two, and very good. I'm seeing it. Charles Turner's got it. Yep, presidential approval is absolutely right. And then Marco, yeah, you got it. Right track, wrong track. Excellent. Excellent, guys. You got it. Look at you guys. Awesome. Awesome. Right track, wrong track. Right track, wrong track. Approval rating, you got it. Presidential approval, right track, wrong track. So the two indicators that determine how an election is going to play out are right track, wrong track, and presidential approval. But we can actually reduce it to one. If, again, just to simplify, okay? And that's because of a new study that just came out by Henry Olson of the Ethics and Public Policy Center. It's a really neat study, very fascinating. He's been sharing some of the results, if you can believe it, in the Washington Post and a number of other podcasts of late. And what he did is he studied all the various midterms of the past, going back decades. And what he found was a fixed common factor in all of them in terms of the results. Every single midterm, this is the conclusion of this study, every single midterm that he studied, everyone without exception, the results, and again, this is going back, I forgot what it was, to the 40s, 30s, 40s, I'm forgetting where he went back, 100 years or so. The results of the midterms were directly related to the approval rating of the president. Every single one, including the ones that went great for the sitting president, like the most recently in 2002, those midterms when the Republicans actually gained seats in Congress. Bush's approval rating was through the roof. He was well over 50%. Okay, so what's so fascinating about this study is that he concluded that all of the other things that we pay attention to, the quality of the candidate that we heard so much about when it came to like someone like Herschel Walker, for example, or the amount of money that's being thrown into a campaign, Mastriano's being spent out. What is he? I mean, Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania is getting like $50 million. It's the biggest pot of finance that's come into a gubernatorial race, as I understand it, in history against Mastriano, who has no money because the Republican Governors Association, to their effing shame, has barred him from getting any money because he's too extreme, blah, 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 all that. But it's not the amount of money being spent at campaigns, not the quality of candidate, it's not the amount of media time and attention, it's not even the polls. Ultimately, none of that matters according to the historical data. None of that matters. What ultimately matters is presidential approval. So in terms of the two determinative indicators, right track, wrong track, and presidential approval, we can actually boil it down to one more decisive indicator, to just one, I should say, not one more, to just one decisive indicator for how midterms are going to play out, and that's presidential approval. And we're seeing this happen right before our very eyes. We're seeing the undecideds, which interestingly are Republicans and independents. When you look at the undecideds, they're disproportionately, Democrats just live for this shit, obviously. So Democrats know who they're voting for. But Republicans, particularly rural Republicans, they tend to tune out of politics, God bless them. They tend to tune out of politics until just a couple of weeks before an election. Independents are very much the same way. They're independent precisely because they don't give a rip about either party. It's not until a few weeks before an election that they start paying attention to determine who they're going to vote for. And what we have found that's relatively determinative in what they end up choosing to vote for or who they end up choosing to vote for is their attitude towards the sitting president. If the president has a high or favorable job approval, then those undecideds will tend to vote for the candidate that promises to defend and promote the president's agenda. However, if that president's approval rating is in the toilet, they almost unanimously vote for the candidate. They break for the candidate that promises to stop and push back against the president's agenda, and they do so about 3 to 2 weeks before the election. So what we're seeing now across the board, given that Biden has historically low approval ratings, I mean, his approval ratings are so bad. You guys know this. His approval ratings are so bad. They make Clinton's approval ratings back in the fall of 1994, right? Just weeks before the year of the Republican Revolution, the Gingrich Revolution. Biden's approval ratings make Clinton's numbers back then look golden by comparison. Given that Biden has slumped into the 30s, we are now seeing in virtually every single poll across the board, voters breaking overwhelmingly for the Republicans. Overwhelmingly. We predict, just like we predicted they would. How many live streams have I been on when I've been getting questions? What about all these polls? These polls look terrible for the Republicans. Don't worry. Relax, right? Look, the Democrats were surging. We saw that. I know, in the summer. Every single poll of the Dems leading in the generic ballot. All our candidates looked like they were getting crushed. J.D. Vance, Kerry Lake, Blake Masters, Herschel Walker. I'll even throw Dr. Oz in there. Of course, Doug Mastriano. They all were all underwater. And of course, the left-wing activists disguised as journalists were all salivating over their laptops, writing out these demoralizing article after article after article, predicting a blue wave was forming. Or at the very least, they were reveling in the notion that the GOP was blowing it. You know, the GOP could have gotten 100 seats, but now they're only going to get 5. You know, in fact, they were coming around to saying Nancy might hold on to the House, that they were, Schumer was going to, Upchuck Schumer was going to gain seats in the Senate. Notice nobody's talking that way anymore. Have you noticed that? Notice no one is saying anything like that right now. No one's. We talked about. I mentioned this at the beginning here. They shifted their message. What's their message now? They're screaming and crying that our democracy is at risk. These people our democracy is at risk because people are going to vote the wrong way. What utter clowns? Our democracy is at risk because too many people are voting the wrong way. I mean, these lamestream left-wing clowns are just absolute shills. They're beyond pathetic. And they are. And the reason why we know that they are very sinister people is because every single person in lamestream media knows about what's called the response bias in summer polls. This is what I kept trying to comfort you with. Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, talks about this a lot. In every single election cycle, there is a response bias in the latter months of the summer into early fall where Republicans historically don't respond to polls. It's hard to know exactly why, but it seems to be related very much to Republicans having lives. They have families, they have jobs, and that time of year, late summer, they're tending to their families. They're doing that last vacation before the end of the summer, before school starts, or they're getting slammed with a lot of work as the summer is folding and fall is approaching. Whatever it is, they're not answering poll inquiries, whereas Democrats live for this shit. I mean, Democrats just they wait by their phone for an opinion pollster to call them so they can give their opinions. They're woke opinion 24/7, 365. They can't wait, right? And the media knows this. They know that Republican responses in polls go down in July and August and September. They know that, and yet they exploit it by writing these pieces that make you think that Democrats are surging. They're vile people. That's all part of what scholars call the agenda-setting power that the media has, agenda-setting theory. We've talked about that a lot on this channel. The media knows they historically have an inordinate influence over public policy by what they promote, by what they champion in their media coverage. But now, as we're seeing with this brutal October surprise, this shocker that women, independent women, are now breaking Republican by 18 points, an overall 32-point shift in just 30 days, in just the last month, which if you think it through, I mean, given that we have another 2.5 weeks to go, I mean, if we're seeing this 32-point shift in 30 days, and we still have another, 17, 18 more days to go, we could be seeing a 25-point lead. It's astonishing. But as we're seeing this happen, now the media is doing everything they possibly can to desperately call those voters back. Please, our democracy is at risk. Please, democracy, stop voting the way we don't want you to, and save democracy. Yeah, good luck with that one. So who wants to see just how much the Republicans things are breaking towards the Republicans here? It is astonishing. We got a bunch of polls that just dropped. You're going to be absolutely ecstatic. And gang, as you know, together, we patriots are building an amazing parallel economy together, free from woke tyrants. We celebrate faith, family, and freedom. Business owners out there, if you're looking to get your product or service in front of millions of patriots like we have here, I want to help you. Click on that link in the description below or go to advertising.turleytalks.com to talk to someone from my team about how you can help spread the word. That's advertising.turleytalks.com. We've got a lot of different packages that you can choose from. Click on that link below and help build a parallel economy that's free from all things woke. We're going to love it. All right. So we've got a brand new poll that just dropped as of this morning. It's from Rich Barris of the People's Pundit and Emerson College. They've combined forces, and they've done a very, very extensive poll. It's if you don't know, Rich Barris is one of the most accurate pollsters out there. We had a great interview with him. I was just on his show. He called the Glenn Youngkin gubernatorial race of Virginia last year to the county. I mean, he was so spot on. His poll just got dropped. It has Republicans now up by 5 on the generic ballot. They were up by 3 in the RCP, the Real Clear Politics one, 3 point something. But Real Clear RCP tends to oversample Democrats. That's their problem. Rich doesn't. Rich gets the county and rural voter into his polling sample like nobody else. We saw a 3-point gap between Republican versus Democrat in favor of Republican with the RCP average. New York Times has a 4-point gap. Rich said as of today, we're actually seeing it rise. It's a 5-point gap. Republicans are up 46-41 on the generic ballot. Now, again, that's of today. What will it be in 2.5 weeks? Everyone who's really analyzing this stuff is saying we may be seeing a Republican +6, perhaps a Republican +7 electorate in 2.5 weeks from now. Now, do you realize what that means? All right, I want you may be, okay, look, I've got my coffee here. You may need to sit down for this one. The news is just too good. It's winning. It's just too good. I'm going to have a nice, what does Scott Adams call it? Simultaneous sip. I hope he didn't trademark that. Forgive me. I love coffee. All right. Remember, the GOP went into the 2020 election with a Democrat +3 electorate. Well, I want this to hit you. The Democrats led the Republicans by 3 in 2020, and the Republicans almost took control of the House. Remember, that +3 is an aggregate average. It generally speaking tends to overestimate. It tends to, overrepresent the cosmopolitan vote, right? So your coastal elite cities from Boston to Philly to D.C., Baltimore, Atlanta, and then onto the West Coast, L.A., Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, and then Chicago in the middle. It tends to overestimate the cosmopolitan centers and underestimate the rural vote, okay? So with that +3 Democrat advantage in 2020, the Republicans almost took control of the House. We gained 14 seats and almost stole Congress from Nancy Pelosi. And Pelosi today has the slimmest majority in congressional history. Republicans almost won control of the House with a Democrat +3 advantage. Can you imagine what is about to happen with a Republican +5, 6, maybe even 7 advantage? Now, we're seeing exactly right now, as we speak, why the polls are breaking decisively and overwhelmingly in favor of the Republicans across the board. Biden's approval ratings, which the Barris-Emerson poll today, that was just dropped today, has them at 39%. Those dismal approval ratings are causing the undecideds, independent women, disengaged Republicans, right? Republicans up to now who haven't been paying attention to politics, conservative Latinos who have traditionally voted Democrat, but now who are overwhelmingly stating they're going to vote Republican by a factor of 8 to 2. Working class whites and particularly black men, they are all abandoning the Democrats. They're defecting in droves, and all the polls are showing it. We're seeing it in Arizona, where Kerry Lake, Blake Masters, Mark Fincham, Secretary of State. Fincham might win by 10 points. Fincham is crushing it. The attorney general out there, they are all down ticket. They're surging. Like, Kerry Lake is just crushing it. I mean, Blake Masters is. I think he's a shoo-in. We'll see, obviously, but the point is they're all surging. Adam Lax in Nevada, Adam Laxalt, Joe Lombardo down the ticket, all surging. Georgia, Herschel Walker is crushing it. In Pennsylvania, Dr. Oz is. Fetterman's campaign is imploding. I don't know what else to say. I mean, Fetterman. Fetterman can't put together. Fetterman doesn't know where a noun, a verb, and a direct object fit together. I mean, he just doesn't. He can't. It's worse than Biden's slaughtering preposition. So Fetterman's collapsing. Oz is rocking. But here's the thing. The energy, ironically, the base energy is behind Mastriano. So I think Oz, the way pollsters poll Pennsylvania, is disproportionately representative of Democrat-heavy Eastern Pennsylvania. And they almost always leave Western Pennsylvania. It's just underrepresented. So I think what we're seeing here are the polls of how Oz and Doug Mastriano are basically doing in Eastern Pennsylvania, which is inordinately Democrat. And Fetterman's imploding. He's falling apart. Plus Josh Shapiro, which is Mastriano's opponent, he is constantly given a his Red Eagle Politics was talking about this. He's constantly overstated in the polls. He was supposed to win by 15 points in the last election. He won by just 3 or 4. So this is a clear case of response bias that I think we're seeing with the case of Josh Shapiro. So Pennsylvania polls are all moving in our direction. In fact, Democrats now are freaking out so bad, they're pulling their money to try to save what were once considered absolutely safe seats. Lee Zeldin is within the margin of error with Kathy Hochul in New York in the gubernatorial race. He's now just down 2 points in the bluest of blue states. Same with Tudor Dixon. Tudor Dixon is within 2 points of Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. She's nipping at her heels within the margin of error. In Oregon, Christine Drazen is poised to become the first Republican governor elected in Oregon in decades. Cook Political Reports has it as a toss-up gubernatorial race in Antifa land in Oregon, people. Let that hit you. So obviously, we can't be complacent. Obviously, we need to go out there and vote. Obviously, we need to go out and volunteer at our local precincts as officers to oversee the election integrity, the Bannon precinct strategy that works so well in Virginia. That I talked to Mastriano yesterday. We'll have his, I believe we're having his interview today or tomorrow. He's out there getting 10,000 volunteers to man the precincts to basically audit the vote as it comes in. We need to do all that. But provided that patriots are doing everything that we should be doing, all the data, historically interpreted, looks like we are looking at the prospects of an absolutely amazing blowout election in just weeks. All right, over to you. Remember to, gang, again, as I go and answer your questions here, we take care of each other here. A good friend and sponsor, Michael Lush, wants to show you how you can pay off your mortgage in 5 to 7 years without any change in your current income. It's amazing stuff. You got to click on the link below and visit Replace Your Mortgage. It's featuring the one and only Michael Lush. Michael is showing patrons by the thousands how you can build your own personal parallel economy so you're no longer dependent on any woke businesses and you can secure your financial future. Check them out by clicking on that link below. Pay that mortgage off in 5 to 7 years. Think about all the interest that you're going to be saving. All right, let's see what you guys got. Our moderator, Josh, is rocking and rolling here with your questions. Let's see. Okay, very good. Chauncey Hart. A Trafalgar poll came out this week showing Scott Jensen in the lead in Minnesota. Hold on, I got to look that one up here. Scott Jensen, Trafalgar. Wow, that's crazy. I have, to be honest with you, that you are sharing this with me for the first time. I have not been paying attention. I have been delinquent just ahead of time, so you know. I've been delinquent with the with the Minnesota race and with the New Hampshire race. Minnesota race, because in the end, I've been disappointed and burned so many times by Minnesota. We're going to do it. We're finally going to do it, because Minnesota has so many counties that were voting Democrat in every single presidential election, forever. That suddenly switched over and voted for Trump in 2016. We really thought Trump was going to carry it in 2020, and it falls apart. So no, I haven't seen that. But again, that goes with the trajectory. If presidential approval is ultimately decisive, this is the year of the Republican without question. So the more MAGA Republicans we can get, the better. Remember, this study showed, which was very fascinating, this study showed it didn't matter who the candidate was. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what the quality of candidate, didn't matter their ideology or anything. If people don't like the incumbent, the sitting president, they're not going to vote for the party that protects them and perpetuates his policies that they don't like. They're going to vote for some kind of course correction. And they don't care who they vote in. They don't. So that's why I think Herschel Walker's a shoo-in. We don't have to worry about that. Dr. Oz is a shoo-in. We just don't have to worry about these things. Melinda Kemby, thank you so much for that gift. Charles Turner, Dr. C, what do you say about these races? U.S. race. So we just went over it. Washington looks very, very close. We'll have to see. I've not looked at Washington of late. Arizona, I think it's going to be a run. Georgia, I think it's going to be a run. Pennsylvania, I think it's going to be a run. And the gubernatorial races we already got. Oregon, New Mexico, we'll see. I'm very, very, I'm very skeptical of New Mexico. We'll have to see. Again, just because the Democrats have been so successful there. In Maryland, with Dan Cox, I have not been keeping up with Dan. So I don't have the stats for you. I don't know outside of what the races I was giving to you there. Gamehenge Patriot, they call us election deniers when all I heard for 4 years was Trump is not my president. This is what makes Kari Lake so awesome. She pushes back so quick on that. When did questioning an election suddenly become taboo, when that's all we got for 3.5 years from not just from the Democrats, but from the media every single night? Rachel Maddow, MSNBC, they were all talking about Putin is the one who won our election, not the people. So I mean, it's just it just goes to show when it comes to cancel culture, it's not the crime, it's the person. You have to remember the key difference between a functioning democracy, a functioning republic, and a banana republic is that a functioning republic investigates a crime, as Dan Bongino put this perfectly. A functioning republic investigates a crime in order to find a person. There was a crime committed, and now we have to find who did that. That's a society that is governed by the rule of law. A banana republic investigates a person in order to find a crime. So, and we know this is what the Democrats have become. So what the Democrats do is they say, okay, you're MAGA, you're a threat to us. So, and I mean a real threat. They really believe we're an existential threat and we're going to destroy them, which we are. But so you need to be shut up. You need to be canceled. So now let's just find something to shut you up with. Let's find a crime. Let's fabricate a crime that we can use as justification to shut you up. So that's how they work. So they start with the person and then find the crime. So it's the kangaroo court J6 thing. The guilty verdict has already been rendered. Now we just have to find something to substantiate that, versus starting with the crime and then trying to find the person. And we know that because the crimes are so asymmetrical. They're so hypocritical. You know, you were denying the election results for years and years. Stacey Abrams, to this day, still denies the election results of 2018. To this day. And yet, When we are concerned about it, suddenly now we need to shut up. That's a threat to democracy. It's the worst thing that can ever be said. That's the big lie, blah, blah, blah. So you got it. You can account for that inconsistency based on the fact that they start with the person, then try to find the crime. All right. Fatty Lutus, did you know Fetterman wears neck gaiters to hide that massive lump on the back of his neck? That Igor kind of look. I mean, he's got to be. I always thought Biden was the perfect symbol of the Democratic Party. You know, senile and bumbling and stumbling and hypocritical and incoherent. I'm starting to think Fetterman is the better. It just, it's big, it's clunky, it's bizarre, it's strange. It doesn't make it doesn't fit in any picture it's found in. Yeah, he's pretty pathetic. William Oz. John Raleigh could not speak. Biden trapped on stage. I'm not sure what that means, William. I'm sorry, but I'm sure it's cool. Larry Davis. Why are people waking now to the lies of Democrats and mainstream media? Okay, Larry, that is a phenomenal question. You have to remember, if you put it in historical context, being politically aware and politically astute and educated is a relatively novel new thing. It's in many respects, a lot of scholars believe that's one of the things that makes the modern public square different from, say, the age of monarchy and royalty. Mass popular political sentiment and opinion was much more comparable to like what we see with the tabloids on the royals today than anything we see like what we're doing now. Critical political engagement is a relatively new phenomenon, and it started in the 19th century, ironically, with the media, with the rise of newspapers. Newspapers start in the 19th century. This is Jürgen Habermas traced this out, the German sociologist. It starts in the 19th century. Newspapers are all they're being produced, and by the way, they're being published primarily by parties. So in Maryland, in Cecil County, the two major papers was the Cecil County Whig and the Cecil County Democrat. So going back to early 19th century, the Whigs produced a paper and the Democrats produced a paper. And then what people got is they got commentary by true believers in their policies and how they're interpreting the day's events, the current events, and so on, in light of their policies. So that nobody was trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Nobody was trying to say, "Oh, we're just giving you the objective facts and nothing more," while they slip in their political agendas. It's very much like talk radio. Scholars have talked about talk radio in the late '80s with Rush Limbaugh was a recapturing in many ways of the way politics were discussed and talked about in the 19th century. So, but this is a relatively new thing. In that, I should finish the thought. In that, we talked about politics in relation to very expressed, very thought through political values. So you didn't try to hide the values. You brought the values in, but because you were confident that they best explain what the issues that were at hand. And so the point is that started with a very small, educated, literate group of citizens, and then it's just grown and grown and grown over the decades. But it still remains, our ilk that are fascinated by the police, that are fascinated by civics and civilization and the political. We're still a minority. I mean, everybody's got an opinion on it now, but it's not necessarily critical opinions. It's not opinions where it's based on a very deliberate effort to try to arrive at truth. Yeah, they're just throwing it out like everybody's got an opinion on religion or something like that. That doesn't make them theologians. So you have to understand that as frustrating as it can be, most people who vote are not anywhere near as engaged as we are in the political process. The good news is we do have some indicators to figure out how they're going to vote, and the better news is that indicator, presidential approval, is working massively in our direction. So as they do start waking up, they wake up to and tuning in. They tune to say, "Oh, I hate Biden. Who's going to vote against Biden? All right, Mastriano's my guy. Oz is my guy. Lake is my gal. You name it, right?" All right, Salvador, thank you so much. Incredible. Thank you, sir. RLC Mark, your view on C vaccines, digital ID, CBDC, central bank currencies. Do you know Trump's views? All that sort of stuff. Throw it all away, of course. Look, just very, very quickly, when all is said and done, they're all related to the notion of globalist centralization. So globalism runs society, globalists run society like a corporation. And every corporation is ultimately centralized into a body of decision makers, a board of directors, and the like. And so increasingly, everything in society is removed from local control: family, faith, institutions, community, county, it's even state. It's removed away from, it's technically known as disembedding. It's dislodged from local control, and it converges in centralized control at the very top. And these are your technologists. These are technocratic managerial elites like the demons at Davos or the bullies in Brussels, who have the ultimate decision-making authority over anything and everything that, quote, matters to our economy and to our society and the like. So that's just the nature of globalism. So all of this, and I would argue in the end, is all just kind of the last-ditch effort of globalists to hold on and to continue their enterprise of a managerial vision for society. Managed by an elite group of technocrats. It's going to implode. It's falling apart. The populist revolts happening in Europe, I think they're ahead of us in many respects. It's happening here in the States, happening all over the world. You could even see Russia in many respects leading an international revolt against it, particularly against the bullies in Brussels and the demons in Davos. And it has no future. So, Rodney, full circle, off-topic question. You did 2 interviews with people about self-publishing books. What were those videos? I'm having difficulty in finding what were those. In finding those interviews, do you remember who you interviewed? Thank you for all you do. Yes. I'm so horrible with names. Patriot Publishing. Hey, Josh, if you're watching, I'll ask our moderator. Josh, if you're watching, if you can throw into the chat here maybe a link to the book publisher that we talked with, who runs the Patriot Book Publishing. Because off the top of my head, I don't know. It all blurs. I'm terrible with names. I'm horrible. So Josh might be able to throw it in there for you. Josh, you could throw it in my chat here as well on Slack, and we'll get you that answer. Tom Greer, what about the voters like me who can't be polled? Right. How close to the truth are the polls really? That's exactly it, Tom. That's it. And that's what Rich Barris tries to do. Rich Barris tries to bring to account for that. And that's where Barris brings in some of these meta indicators like right track, wrong track polls, party self-identification and affiliation, presidential approval ratings, those sort of things. You bring those in so that you're able. I mean, 538, to their credit, did a study with NBC News and found that among all of the more contested races, congressional races across the country, not just generically who you're going to vote for, Republican or Democrat. No, let's zero in on those contested races in some of these rural areas that or suburban areas that can go back and forth. So they're more purple. They found Republicans were up 21 points in those areas. So you do find some polling that can buck the trend of just the aggregate poll that always inordinately samples the cosmopolitan blue vote. Aaron Farrell, thank you, Dr. Sue. Thank you, Aaron. Very kind of you. Mamadou from Congo. God bless you, my brother. Thank you for your gift. Very, very, very thankful. Beth Leon, thank you for your gift. Sorry, this zipped by. Aaron Farouk, Mastriano will win. The red wave would be a red asteroid. I'm with you, Aaron. I think Mastriano's got this. Hunter Biden's crack pipe. Oh, that's the best. That's the best name ever. Do you think Biden will resign before the next presidential election? It's very interesting because a number of pundits were asking that in the shadow of Afghanistan, because Afghanistan withdrawal was such a massive blunder. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, he's obviously a weekend at Bernie's president, so he's not going to make that decision. Obviously, the decision will be made for him by Jill, probably. We'll see. But I do not think he's going to be running again at this point. He's too much of a disaster. 2/3 of Democrats don't want him running again. So anyway, Lisa Bailey, RCP says if we win in Minnesota, get out and vote. We can get Jensen in. There you go. Absolutely. I definitely want to see it. Is that? Did I get that right? Let me see. Hold on. I want to read your Jensen. Scott Jensen, right? Yeah, I did get Minnesota. I saw the MN, and I want to make sure I get my. I have these Swiss cheese little holes in my brain, forgetting. What is MN? Is that Minnesota or is it Michigan? I forget. Very good. Yes, keep going, guys. If you're in Minnesota, rock and roll. This is the year. You can do it. Michael Baker, $10. Thank you, sir, very much. Eldon Sword, vote in person, November 8th. Vote, baby, vote. Amen, amen. We can do. What are we doing about the Dominion machines? I don't know. I do know that Youngkin's strategy for implementing the Bannon's precinct strategy, having patriots at precincts as the votes come in to audit as they come in, worked. So that's what we have to do. That's absolutely what we have to do. Do not get distracted by that shit. Do not get distracted by that shit. That is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that right now, I'm going to be blunt with you. I think that's I think that's a misinformation operation that is aimed at keeping you from going out. Thinking, oh, well, just as long if we don't have control over the machines, then we're not. Who cares who votes? Don't do that. Don't do that. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Do not do that. Do not give in to those sirens. That's horrible. Political thing. Why do Jordan Peterson, Steve Crowder, Ben Shapiro, and you see the war in Ukraine and Putin's strategy so completely opposite of each other? I supported Putin since he called BS in Obama versus Gaddafi. I don't know where Steven Crowder is, and I haven't been following Ben Shapiro's view on it so much. But I know, I mean, Jordan Peterson and I have very similar opinions. I've done some polls on, some videos on his view of Putin. Look, I've got my own theory on why we have divergent opinions on it. And I'll just very, very briefly, in the end, because I think there are a number of voices on the right who are still ideologues. What I believe, big picture, what I've been pushing on this channel for 6 years is a field of scholarship known as post-secular theory. You could call it post-globalist theory. And what they do is they recognize that we are moving away from a modernist politics rooted in ideology. That was the Cold War, communism versus, democracy, whatever it was, capitalism, whatever you want to call it, versus fascism and all that. All the isms of the 20th century. We're moving from a century of ideology to a century of identity. We are now in the world of identity, and that's what's rising. People could give a rip about ideology. They want to return back to nation, culture, custom, tradition. A way of understanding that in light of one of the other questions is that because that disembedding of globalism, where it tries to centralize all power and decision-making over anything that matters in politics and economy, that's collapsing. The globalist structure is collapsing. And so we're seeing what's called a re-territorialization. Political and economic decision-making is falling back to the local. And once it starts falling back to the local, then identity markers like family, faith, community, county, state, region, yes, often race, religion, all of these things now have inordinate influence over our politics. That's what's happening all over the world right now. It's happening here in the United States. Even think of Texas, for example. So, and that's the key. The re-territorialization that's happening with the politics going back to the local is happening in all kinds of different ways. It's mostly happening in the recovery of nationalism. So going back to national sovereignty is over and against the globalists. It's MAGA. It's what we're seeing with Giorgia Meloni in Italy. It's what we saw with Jimmie Åkesson and the Sweden Democrats. And those are good Democrats. They're Patriot Party in Sweden, obviously. It's what we're seeing with the rise of National Rally in France, or the AfD in Germany, and on and on. Viktor Orban in Hungary, the Law and Justice Party in Poland, and the like. But it's also manifesting itself in kind of renewed tribalisms or regionalisms, where you're seeing the breakaway movements, Scottish independence or Quebec independence or Lugansk and Donetsk, Donbass independence, and Northern Sudan, Southern Sudan, that kind of stuff. And then you have the civilizational outworking of it, the rise of the civilization states, where the old ancient religious ritual myths are reawakening for a Hindu nationalist India and a Neo-Confucian China, and yes, a Neo-Orthodox Slavosphere Russia. So re-territorialization's happening in all these different ways, but it all centers on identity. Who are we, right? As opposed to what do we believe? I think a lot of people on the right are still ideologues. They don't realize that. They haven't, the political parlance, going back to this idea of having a critical politics, a very involved, thought-through political discourse, for them is still very ideologically centered. So they think this is democracy versus, authoritarianism, as if freaking Ukraine is a democracy. Are you kidding me? I mean, come on. I mean, if that's a democracy, then we need to get rid of every single, sanction against any Middle Eastern nation or whatever. They think it's freedom versus repression, or and liberty versus totalitarianism. They think it's the Cold War all over again. So that's the difference. The difference is I side that we are living in an age of identity. They're still thinking we live in an age of ideology, even though all the studies show that's about as bunk. The polls, who do you vote for? Who do undecideds vote for in the presidential election? What's this whole video been about? Do they vote for the ideologue? Do they vote ideologue? No, they vote whether or not they like the president or not. Presidential approval, right? It has nothing to do with ideology. Ideology's dead. It's falling apart. Well, it's still alive in the woke world. And that's why you'll find people on the right, when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, siding with Nancy Pelosi and freaking George Soros, because they're all siding with, ultimately, Western liberal ideology. So then they just come on a left side and a right side of that. I throw all that away. I focus on identity, because that's where I believe the world is going. And I believe, ironically, that's going to give us a much more conservative future, much more, tradition-based future. And that's how I end up differing from other opinions. Josh, thank you for your gift. Nelson, how many Hispanics switch in the poll? Didn't see that in that poll, but we have several polls that show. We have one that came out. I don't know if I have it here. We have one that came out that looked at conservative Hispanics, self-identified conservative Hispanics, who voted 7-3 Democrat last midterms, are now voting 8-2 Republican. So it was like an 80% swing. It was unbelievable. So we're seeing that happen, and it's wonderful. It started in Miami-Dade, the Latino defection from Democrats in 2020. It's gone through Rio Grande in Texas. It's hitting now Arizona and Nevada. Kari Lake may very well take the Latino vote, and it looks like it's hitting in Virginia and Pennsylvania as well. Political Trekker. Oh, and Boney Eyes, thank you for your gift. Political Trekker. Trump's biggest mistake was not creating a third party, so we actually knew who to vote for and not to vote for. This is a flaw in the two-party system. You're right, Political Trekker. I don't know if that's his biggest mistake, but you're right that there is a flaw in the two-party system that they don't have in Europe, where if you have a problem with a party in Europe, then you just go and you form another party because it's representational democracy. They have like 8 parties running, and then and that third party is MAGA from top to bottom. In other words, it's patriots all the way through, right? So that's like the Brothers of Italy. They're in terms of their political platforms, they're firmly united, but in the end, you still have to coalition. You're still going to have to coalition with another party. All right. And so they have to coalition with Forza Italia. They're coalitioning with Lega, too. Lega's top to bottom patriot. But Forza Italia is your center right, your kind of milquetoast, conservative party in Italian politics. You still have to coalition. So you never quite get away from it. But the benefit of the third party is at least the leadership can be MAGA-oriented, can be patriot-oriented. Whereas what we're facing right now, because we're trying to coalition within a single party, is that the leadership is so dominated by a bunch of rhino feckless scumbags. That's why the Republican gubernatorial committee won't support Doug Mastriano. They'll support the freaking candidate in Connecticut, the Republican candidate in Connecticut, who doesn't have a chance in hell of winning. They're throwing him money, but they're not throwing anything to Mastriano. It's disgusting. So I'm with you. But again, it's not as easily solved as we might think. Generalissimo Liberty, good to see the rhinos in Pulaski County, Arkansas strike again. At the meeting last night, they broke the rules, call out the Capitol Police and the Conservative because there was a motion to have a roll call for accountability. Yeah, rhinos suck. And again, keep in mind, rhinos could be the worst in the deepest red states because Democrats know they can't win those states. So they run. They don't disappear. They run as Republicans. So that's basically Mitt Romney. I mean, Mitt Romney's more or less a Democrat. He's a Massachusetts Republican, which is basically Democrat light. He's a Democrat who knows he can't win as a Democrat in his home state, so he runs as a Republican. But they govern as Democrats. So that's why I prefer Diablo, Democrat and all but label. We do have a Publish and Go. That for that question earlier today. Publish and Go. Joanna Hunt Boyer. She's wonderful. Go check them out. Publish and Go Writing Intensive. It's publishandgo.com. If you want to write a book, they are unbelievable. I wish I had that. Abdiel, Steve Bannon just sentenced to 4 months in jail. Be curious to whether he's going to be able to appeal that until the new Congress and push that off. Yeah, they're scumbags. These people, if we don't have Republicans that aren't going to crush the Democrats politically, legally, fight back with everything they've fought against us with plus 10 times 10, they're worthless. Let's see, Charles Turner. These counties are blue in each state, while the rest are red. Yep, definitely. That's true. Oregon have more than 2/3 of the state, 3/5 of the state wants to secede and join up with Greater Idaho. Boney Eyes Jenkins, Minnesota is disappointing because the DFL steals elections. That's how they clown Franken got in. Absolutely, as they did in Eastern Germany. Whenever they would have any kind of semblance of democracy, Eastern Europe, I meant, whenever they would have any semblance of democratic participation, it was always orchestrated to work in the favor of the political class, but they eventually come down. Josh, can you discuss what Stacey Abrams recently said about abortion, how it would affect the Georgia governor's race? I think Stacey Abrams is toast. Her comments about abortion were beyond absurd. That inflation can be helped with abortion. It's reverse intersectionality. They're trying to create this kind of intersectionalist conception of one social dynamic inevitably has multiple effects. Everybody just looked at her like she was just a nut when she said that. So no, I think Kemp is going to run away with that. He might even win it by double digits. We'll see. USA 2022, do you have an opinion on when we can expect to return to our customs, culture, and tradition like Russia, China, and India? So it's harder here because we're the apex of globalism. That's what you have to get, USA 2022. We are the apex of globalism. If globalism falls here, it falls everywhere. Falls everywhere. So globalists, it's not a coincidence that Soros lives in New York City. Okay, globalists know. The globalist apparatus, the powers that be, the billionaires and all, they know that if the U.S. falls, everything falls. They know if Western Europe falls. Well, Western Europe could fall and the United States could still be really globalist and hold on to things. But so it's harder here, whereas Russia and China and India and Turkey and Pakistan and Iran and they just don't have the same pressures that we do. So they can rush back to traditions and cultures and customs and all day long. Same with it to a certain extent of Eastern Europe as well. Eastern Europe has been able, because they just haven't, globalism started post-1945, post-World War II, a globalist structure of having a vast interlocking mechanism of technology and telecommunications that supposedly created a one-size-fits-all, rules-based world order, liberal order. That was orchestrated by Western Europe and the United States. So that's why it's so hard here. They're embedded. They have all the power here. And think about it. Even with all that power, think about what we are accomplishing. It's incredible. So I don't know. But at the very least, 2030 is the year that demographers believe that pro-life, religiously conservative families in the United States will start becoming the majority because we're having the majority of children. And studies show that 80% of those children do eventually embrace their parents' conservatism. They might have that prodigal period that's so common between the ages of actually, at 18, they're still relatively conservative. Between the age of like 19 and 29, they might have that prodigal period. But generally speaking, especially when they start raising families, they come back to the conservatism, and they see that conservatism taking over by starting around 2030. So we're looking at about 8 years or so for that. Gerald Armstrong, Masterone, was excellent on Timcast. I saw he was on Timcast. I disagree on a few issues, but he's a guy. Amen. Yeah, absolutely, Gerald. Yeah, I did. I saw he was on Timcast, which I was really, really excited to see. Timcast has been on he's found his niche. I know he does his solo videos, but I think his niche right now is almost kind of a Joe Rogan-esque sort of conversation that he's having in his IRLs. That channel's just on fire. Montana Midnight. It got blended together there. Would you interview Don Zuniga of Tactical Civics? He teaches people American civics and how to enforce the Constitution legally at the county. Yeah, well, have him reach out to me. I would love to follow up with that. Gerald Armstrong, any update on Pennsylvania Secretary of State defying the Supreme Court's order? I don't know. Again, they're going to pull all the shenanigans they can. I just rest in the laurels of that study that says, in the end, shenanigans be damned. There's not a lot you can do with the historical precedent that if your president is at abysmally low approval ratings, his party is going to get crushed in the midterms. Bottom line. Icane, Dr. Steve, are you concerned with Durham's investigation? His findings are massive, but everyone charged keeps getting off. Some say he's not doing this right. What are your thoughts? The D.C. jury circuit should be abolished. It is an abomination. It is an utter abomination. It should be abolished. Robert Barnes has been talking about that for years. They have made it clear they love the swamp. These are citizens. These are people that this is the jury system, the jury, constituents in D.C. They have made it clear they are 99% Democrat. They are 100% for the swamp. They want and they will fight back using weaponized legalism. All their decisions will crush Republicans, and it will exonerate Democrats. And so that's what Durham's faced with at this point. I don't even know why he does his job at this point. I just like the fact that he's bringing to the light all these things, and he's creating a massive upsurge. But if our next Trump 2024 victory does not result in disbanding that D.C. circuit that can no longer be considered to be an impartial jury, we're absurd and stupid. AJ Eckley, Cocaine Mitch almost lost his last election. I think he'd be voted out in 2 years if Trump does not endorse him. If 2024, if there is a seriously awesome young ultra MAGA candidate, he's gone. I think Mitch is gone, no question, because it's Kentucky. Kentucky's Rand Paul's their other senator, so I don't think it would be a problem. KP, Dr. Steve, I think the folks that are willing to see truth that Biden's a sick man would have to recognize they too are sick. The darkness is very dark in that group. I agree with you. I think there is a serious lack of self-awareness and self-reflection there. When they couldn't even see how the Martha's Vineyard residents were the epitome of hypocrisy. Remember, Martha's Vineyard is a sanctuary, is designated as a sanctuary region for so-called, refugees, illegal immigrants. I mean, if they couldn't see how that was ridiculously hypocritical, they're beyond hope. So you just have to defeat them. You have to use political power to defeat them. Let's see. Salty Texas Trucker. Thanks for the Alex's vid last night. Yeah, wasn't that great? Alex and Alexander of the Duran. My favorite channel, pound for pound on YouTube. And I love sharing them with you. Alma, Williams, thank you. Antoine, thank you. And Mike, is America's position as a globalist apex also the reason why there's no understanding of American custom, culture, tradition, and morals among younger generations? Absolutely. It certainly has a lot to do with that. It certainly has a lot to do with that. Globalists hate, globalists despise culture, custom, and tradition because it interrupts the centralization process. And so absolutely, our public school systems, our universities, that's why we're trying. It's not that they don't even appreciate it. It's that they hate. They're being taught to literally hate and despise our cultures, customs, and traditions. You got it. Again, all for naught in the end, because it's not the secularists, globalists that are having kids. Yeah. You have to remember. Homeschooling went up in some areas, and as I understand, mostly blue areas, by 700% over the last 2 years. Homeschooling has gone up in some areas by 300% aggregate overall, 700% in some areas. The president of the Association of Classical and Christian Schools told me, I believe they've almost doubled in their enrollment over the last 2 years. So they're shrinking. We're growing. There's nothing they can do to stop it. It's how much damage do they do in the meantime when all's said and done. And then finally, Aaron, been with you since 200,000 subs. Here's to 1 million. Aaron Jenkins, thank you, brother. We're almost at 1 million. We'll have a special live stream for that. Stay tuned for that, a special 1 million live stream. And that's because of you, Aaron. It's because of all you guys out there. Thank you so much for everything you've meant to me and to everybody here on the team at Turley Talks. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay strong, and let's rock and roll. God bless, guys.